Ever since we started to get introduced to the members of Kara and people like Ida and Damon with their cracked abilities that we've never seen in the Naruto universe, it's always been a question of how did they attain such power and why haven't they showed up before? We actually get an answer to that after the code arc, when Amato basically tells us that he used the cells of a god called Shibai to enhance all members of Kara and Damon and Ida. Of course, the all members of Kara part came later on in Two Blue Vortex, but essentially that's all you have to get. Shibai is a god, they used his cells and enhanced all the members of Kara. So that's pretty much it. And the reason why he is a god is because he ate a bunch of god fruit while undergoing countless karmic resurrections and ascended like all Otsutsuki do. That's it. Video over. Unless that isn't the real reason of why he's so powerful. And if we dig a little deeper and analyze his lore and the Boruto story a little more, we begin to find out he would have to have had all of these powers before he ascended. I'll tell you why. It's because before ascending, that is the body that Amato has hold of. Because after he ascended, of course, he goes to another plane of existence, and we can't interact with that plane of existence because we are lesser beings. That would have to have mean that all of the abilities that Kara members Ida and Damon has, those are his weaker abilities and pre-ascension Shibai abilities. This is kind of further evidence when Amato says that creating abilities and crafting abilities is something that only gods can do, and he merely transplants these abilities. But then you're left with another question. He says this is only something gods can do. And if I'm telling you that he did this before ascending to godhood, how could this still be trapped in his lower level body? Well, there are kind of two definitions of gods within the Boruto and Naruto universe. Back in Naruto at the end of Shippuden, we get what a god is. That is Hagoromo and Kaguya. People worshipped Hagoromo like a god because he of course spread chakra and jutsu and ninshu throughout all of the lands of Naruto after defeating his mother. And Kaguya is of course the reason why he is so powerful. So she is the rabbit goddess. That is the first definition of god. And of course following her there are people like Momoshiki, Ishiki, and if you want to count the members of Kara, so what? But these are just people who are mere gods to mortals like us. They are just so much more powerful than the human race that we look at them as something that is unachievable through normal means and something that we can't replicate at all. That's pretty much the whole thinking behind Shinjutsu. These lower level gods, or the first definition of gods within the universe, have these divine abilities akin to miracles that we merely try to replicate through ninjutsu. That is exactly how Shinjutsu is explained. So then what's the second definition of god? That is of course once they do the goal that every Otsutsuki sets out to do, which is through countless god trees and god fruits and karmic resurrection, you ascend to a new plane of existence, shedding your mortal body and basically becoming a peerless and unique being. This is what Code's current goal is. So now that we have defined what God means in both contexts, depending on my sentence that I'm using, you will clearly know which one I'm referring to throughout this video. I'm mostly going to be referring to the first definition of God, the higher beings than humanity, but not on a different dimensional tier like Shibai. So now that we've answered that question, just how did he create these abilities? Because like Amato said, crafting abilities is something only gods can do. And he is of course getting this from Shibai. Momoshiki confirms that Shibai has every single Shinjutsu and he's this ancient Otsutsuki who shed his body and went to another dimension. I believe omnipotence is the reason for creating every single ability or every single Shinjutsu that we see within Boruto. For a quick little lower dive on what omnipotence does, it basically brings any desire you have into reality and creates an entire new, I guess, event or ability, if you need to say that. We see this when Ida gets revealed that she doesn't have a charm ability, it is actually omnipotence. So people have kind of been misdefining that the entire time. Momoshiki is actually the one who reveals this. So that's proof enough that you can craft abilities with omnipotence. Because omnipotence is the highest form of Shinjutsu that we've seen and I guess that we will ever see, because Momoshiki talks about it like it's a Shinjutsu within a Shinjutsu, which just means divine ability. Or divine jutsu, if you say. So now the only thing left to do is to go through every Shinjutsu we have so far and give a bit of a reason why Shibai would need this. First, starting with the most simple of them, the ability to, create claw marks. You can travel through different time spaces. You can travel through the claw marks. You can make abilities kind of phase through you, kind of like what Kamui did, but in reality, it's just getting sucked through the claw marks and comes out on the other side. We see this more blatant in the Boruto anime, but in the manga, it also has Code doing it when Kawaki and Boruto first kind of try to fight him and Kawaki launches a technique at him. This ability is kind of confusing because Otsutsuki by nature and just inherently have the ability to trespass in any dimension via creating portals. So I don't understand why Shibai would need claw marks specifically. But, you know, if you're not trying to traverse dimensions and just traverse like a planet you're on or kind of just wherever you are at the time, then I can see claw marks being more useful than Otsutsuki portals. They're also less draining and easier to kind of use because you just slash out your hand and claw marks appear. And if he was getting attacked or having to fight someone, he would also be able to kind of teleport their techniques wherever he wants to. What I think is the more likely outcome of why he kind of desired Code's ability is that with one of the 10-tailed seedlings, whether it's a throwaway one or the one that he had, he kind of reshaped it into an army or into something that is just more beneficial to what he's trying to do. Because as we've seen with Code, he's able to kind of break apart the 10-tails. We don't know if he can do this to other living beings or if it's just the 10-tails, but he does break apart the 10-tails to create an army to do his bidding. This could be whether or not he needed something more mobile or whether or not he needed an army to conquer a land, but regardless of what it is used for that reason. Given how he already has dimensional travel, him having that claw mark ability is kind of sus. It's like, why would you just create essentially the same ability with extra steps? So yeah, the more likely conclusion is that since the 10-tails already is linked to the Otsutsuki, he just used that ability to weaponize it more. We also know that the Shinju can be born from them and, you know, develop their own egos and kind of get their own goals, which would further enhance their power if you were trying to take over something or if you were just trying to absorb them yourselves. So that could possibly help in leading to his goal of, you know, ascension. But that's pretty much where Code's ability ends, and, you know, there's really nothing else to discuss about it. Those are the only two ways he could kind of desire an ability like that, because it's such a simple and, I wouldn't say useless, but not that useful ability. The next Shinjutsu we have is, you know, Koji's one, where he can see every possible future and kind of like predict anything that's going to happen within the timeline he's in. This one's a pretty, you know, no-brainer for me. If he desired to look into the future and kind of see what's going to happen with his plan or if he's going to ascend, Shibai would easily just create this ability. It's something that just should logically come to every Otsutsuki. I mean, even people like Momoshiki and Ishiki can kind of see the fate of beings, and Momoshiki can see the future already, kinda. His isn't always true, and he doesn't see as many futures as Shibai or Koji, but it's still kinda some future vision-esque ability. We don't have a name for it right now. Next on the list is Damon's Reflection. Now, Damon's Reflection is also an ability I can only see being conjured up or desired via omnipotence if Shibai was in grave danger. If Shibai was, you know, met his match and had someone who had come towards him with unremarkable power that he just couldn't fathom of ever overcoming, then this reflection ability would give him the edge. Any intent that that person had would be reflected onto them with palm contact, and they would just die. Plain and simple. It would just be essentially how Damon uses the ability. Shibai was caught in a crutch, omnipotence answered his prayers, and boom, created the ability. Now, the next Shinjutsu, I don't know if we can really, you know, count these as things that he would have to desire up with omnipotence, but it's his ability to, when he screams or gets mad or like waves his palm, to create natural disasters. He can create thunderstorms and, you know, big hurricanes and tornadoes just by getting mad, screaming, or waving his arm. These are abilities that I think kind of just come from his raw power, because at the end of the day, he is just an Otsutsuki, and every Otsutsuki have consumed countless god tree fruits and just have throughout the millennia gained so much power that to us humans, they would just seem like overpowered godly beings. So these, I think, are the abilities that he was born with before he kind of acquired omnipotence, however he did. The next Shinjutsu kind of come with the dojutsu that you're granted, like Momoshiki's Rinnegan or Ishiki's whatever eye you want to call it, but they are of course Daikoten or Daikokuten. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm probably going to butcher a bunch of the Japanese names because I'm an English speaking guy, so bear with me. And Sukuna Hikona, which basically allows him to store things in a dimension where time doesn't flow, shrink any object that's non-living that he sees, and the ability to resize those same objects. He is also able to reshape himself, which kind of goes against the non-living part, but since it's himself, it kind of just gives a limitation to the ability. and doesn't allow him to just shrink out of existence anything that he looks at. But these abilities would of course be granted to Shibai if he just had the dojutsu. Having multiple dojutsus as an Otsutsuki and even just as a normal human is something commonly seen within the Naruto universe. I mean, Sasuke has Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, the Rinnegan. Madara has the Rinnegan and Sharingan and the Rinne Sharingan. Kaguya has the Byakugan and Rinne Sharingan. So it's not too far-fetched to say that he probably just has Ishiki's dojutsu as well. If you look at the pic where, Shibai's face is first revealed, you can kind of see that he has something similar to Ishiki's dojutsu. It doesn't have nearly as much triangles or lines, but that could be, of course, hiding it or just unactivated, and he could just be, not in battle right now, so it's not showing the full thing like when it did versus Ishiki, but that is the same eye. And, even if he wasn't born with it, he could have just acquired it via eating divine trees, or, like I said, karmic resurrection. Otsutsuki get power boosts all the time. It's still not too far-fetched to say that he acquired this. Momoshiki's Shinjutsu also comes from his Rinnegan for the most part, which, lo and behold, Shibai also has at the top of his forehead. So it's not too far-fetched to say that his Rinnegan just holds the same abilities and is just super souped up so much to the point that he has all the Rinnegan abilities. Yes, he's truly just broken. Momoshiki does have another Shinjutsu though. He has the ability, like I mentioned prior in the video, to kind of see into one future. And he also can tell the fate of people with his Byakugan. Ishiki can kind of see people's fate as well, but it's not as explored as Momoshiki's, and it's not as big as of a plot point as Momoshiki, so I just mentioned it in this section. The Byakugan, aura sensing or fate sensing, since Ishiki has this ability as well, we can kind of just probably grant this to the Otsutsuki Byakugan and say that higher ranking members probably just all share this ability, because the only people who we've seen have this ability are higher ranking Otsutsukis, that being Momoshiki and Ishiki being the higher up people in their group of Kenshiki and Kaguya respectively. This sightseeing ability is just a worse version of Koji's, so I doubt if Shibai had it, or if Shibai didn't have it, he would just use the Koji-like ability, which just encompasses Momoshiki's. Momoshiki probably just has a worse version of what Shibai has, instead of Shibai having Momoshiki's ability. There's also this pseudo time stop, but since every Otsutsuki that we've seen has had like time-esque abilities, this is probably just, again, something inherent to Otsutsuki's, that they can just control time and space. Now, someone who's kind of strange is Kaguya, right? Because technically, since ninjutsu was created after Kaguya died, all of her abilities would be Shinjutsu, but a lot of Kaguya's abilities come from her ability to just create dimensions and have raw power. While I don't doubt Shibai has the same abilities as Kaguya or has the capabilities of having the same abilities as Kaguya, Kaguya most likely kind of picked up and created these nature and elemental type abilities that she showcases herself. Because in Naruto, she is stated to just be one with nature and kind of fuse with her dimensions. This also being not that strong of an ability in the grand scheme of things, and more or less a divine miracle in terms of humanity, I don't think Shibai has it, but I don't doubt Shibai has the capabilities to just remake it. Because omnipotence, like I said multiple times throughout this video, can just desire anything. That leaves, of course, two Otsutsukis, that being Boruto and Kaoki, who are, by technicality, full Otsutsukis. But the best part about these two are that they get most of their Shinjutsu from their host Otsutsuki or Otsutsukis that have inhabited their body, that being Momoshiki and Ishiki respectively, which means that I've already pretty much covered their Shinjutsu within this video. If they are to develop techniques that are akin to miracles, the only thing I would kind of say that either of them have that is akin to a divine miracle is Rasengan Uzuhiko, since it kind of uses a whole new power source, that being Planet's Chakra, which is different from Sage Mode and Nature Energy, and it incorporates the rotation of an entire world. But that's really the only thing I can grant them. They don't seem to have exclusive Shinjutsu to each other, and if they do, Boruto's Rasengan Uzuhiko is the only one that qualifies. They are just more or less really souped up humans, which is kind of lackluster and kind of, boring for some people, but I don't really mind it. I love Ishiki's and Momoshiki's abilities, so I'll love to see them get more depth. With that being said though, that should be the journey of how Shibai attained such godlike abilities pre-ascension and before he attained true godhood. This video was more or less a theory type video because none of these have inverse explanations, but I think we have enough evidence, and we also have pretty much how abilities work within Boruto and Omnipotence Desirability to say that these were the routes or something akin to these in which Shibai gained all of these abilities or crafted them. Hopefully we figure out for sure though in the future. It'll be a nice little chapter or volume extra, just kind of giving us more information on Shibai because he is a bit of a fan favorite within Boruto. Many people like him due to how powerful he is. He's kind of like a Dragon Ball character on steroids, and he does serve to be a good representation of what the highest point of a verse can be. With that being said though, I don't want to waste any more of your time. Like, comment, subscribe, and goodbye.